Hey bookworms, it's Jade from Bedtime Bookworm and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here to tell you about some of my new favorite authors. This is going to be my first video in my year wrap-up series. I have a lot of videos planned for this series, so bear with me. It's going to be a little while as I get them all out, but I am one of those people who waits until the end of the year to make a lot of my lists, like my favorites lists and things like that, so you won't be seeing those videos until 2020. However, I did come up with a couple of video ideas that I could go ahead and film at the end of December without waiting for the year to be finished, and one of those videos is this one. Now, for an author to hit favorite status for me, I need to love at least 2 books. You never know when an author is going to be just a one-hit wonder, so I wait until I've read a second book by an author to give them the official favorite status. I have 5 authors that I've read 2 or more books by as of the end of 2019 and that have officially made it to my favorites list. And then I also have 4 authors that I read 1 book from this year that I loved so much, and I see them as potential favorites. Hopefully when I read more books from them, they will officially become favorite authors. These are in no particular order except that I'm going to do the favorites first and then followed by my potential favorites. The first author on my list is Margaret Rogerson. I read her second book this year in 2019, which was Sorcery of Thorns, and spoiler alert, it was one of my favorite books that I read this year. I had also previously read her debut novel, An Enchantment of Ravens, when it came out, I think a couple years ago, and I really enjoyed it. I think I only gave it 4 stars, but Chloe, you're being so loud. I think I only gave it 4 stars, but Chloe, you're being loud. I think I only gave that one 4 stars, but Sorcery of Thorns was definitely a 5-star read for me. I will definitely be reading anything that she puts out from now on. She doesn't have another book listed on Goodreads yet, but I know she hinted at something that she's been working on, and I think it involves ghosts, and I'm so excited to see what she comes up with. The next author on my list is Blake Crouch. I read Dark Matter last year, and it was one of my favorite books of the year, and this year I read his next book, Recursion, and I also really enjoyed it. Not quite as much as I enjoyed Dark Matter, but it was still a 5-star read for me. Blake Crouch does have a backlist that I haven't read. I'm very interested in his Wayward Pine series. I've heard good things about a lot of his stuff. Some of it does have some mixed reviews, but I definitely want to read them and see what I think for myself. But anything he comes out with in the future, I will definitely be picking up. Next, I have Emily Sue Veda. I read her debut novel, This Mortal Coil, back in 2017 or 18. I don't quite remember, but it was one of my favorite books of that year. And in 2019, I read the sequel to that book, This Cruel Design, and I also absolutely loved it. I'm having such a blast reading the series. It's a science fiction post-apocalyptic series and it combines so many of my favorite things. The books are action-packed, twisty-turny, have a dash of romance, and I'm just having so much fun reading them. As you're probably aware, I am planning to pick up the 3rd and final book in this trilogy when it comes out in January, and I can't wait. Emily Sue Veda has definitely cemented a spot in my favorite authors list. The next author on my list is Rae Carson. This one's a little bit of a cheat because I technically read my 3rd book by her this year and read my 2nd book by her, I think in like December of 2018, but I didn't do a new favorite authors video for 2018, so I haven't had a chance to talk about her. I have fallen in love with Rae Carson after reading her Gold Seer trilogy, which is a YA historical fantasy set during the Gold Rush, but I love that series so much. I loved the characters and the setting, and I definitely want to read more Rae Carson in the future. I'm planning on reading her Girl of Fire and Thorn series next year, which I've heard so many good things about. A lot of people love that series, and I can't wait to read more Rae Carson. And the last author to make my favorites list is again a little bit of a cheat, but that is Robin Hobb. This year I read all of the Farseer trilogy, which was technically a reread. That's why I'm calling it a little bit of a cheat. But I originally read this series about 10 years ago, and I feel like that was long ago enough that this year when I was reading her books, it was kind of like I was rediscovering Robin Hobb. But after finishing the Farseer trilogy, she has definitely cemented a spot on my favorite authors list, and I cannot wait to read more. As you already know, I'm planning on reading the Live Ship Trader series next year in 2020, and continuing on to the rest of the Realm of the Elderling series, as long as everything goes well, well, which I have no doubt it will. Alright, those are the 5 authors that are new favorites after this year. And now I have 4 more authors that I read one book from this year, but I loved them so much that I think they are potential new favorites. First, I want to say Samantha Shannon. This year I read Priority of the Orange Tree. It was my first Samantha Shannon, and it's also one of my favorite books that I read this year. I'm so glad that this book was a standalone because otherwise I might not have picked it up. I love the world building and the characters and everything about Priority of the Orange Tree. It's going to be one of my favorite books for a really long time, and I need to read more Samantha Shannon. She does have another series called The Bone Season, which is really popular, but it's going to be like a 7-book series and only 3 or 4 of them are out yet. And you know me, I'm trying to avoid series that aren't completed, so I don't plan on picking that up anytime soon, although that makes me really sad because I definitely would like to read more Samantha Shannon. I hope she writes something else in the near future that is not in the Bone Season series because I want to read more of her, but I'm trying to hold off on that series as long as I can. Next, I have Riley Sager. I read my first Riley Sager this year, even though I had been hearing about him for a couple years. This year I read Lock Every Door, and it was so much fun. Definitely one of the best thrillers I've ever read. Granted, I don't have a super long history with thrillers, but this one has been getting really good reviews from a lot of other people too, so I'm definitely not alone in really enjoying this book. I want to go back and read his previous 2 books. I think I'm more interested in The Last Time I Lied because that one has a summer camp setting, which I discovered earlier this year is a setting I really enjoy. So I think that's where I'm going to go next with Riley Sager. He also has another book coming out next year that sounds really good. It's about a girl who grew up in a haunted house, and as an adult she has to go back there. I don't quite remember what for, but I am all about a haunted house story by Riley Sager. Another thriller author that I discovered this year and absolutely loved was Ruth Ware. I read The Turn of the Key this year, and I had so much fun reading that one. I loved the way that it was written, I loved the characters, it was really fast paced, it was just a blast to read, and I really liked the way it concluded, which a lot of times with thrillers, the endings can be a little hit or miss with me. Ruth Ware has quite a backlist for me to get to, but I have heard mixed things about a lot of her books, and I'm not really sure where I'm going to go next. So definitely let me know in the comment section what your favorite Ruth Ware books are. And then the last author I'm going to talk about today is Joe Hill. So I have Nosferatu sitting here behind me as the book that I'm currently reading. It's a little bit of a lie because I finished it last night at like 1:30 in the morning. Excuse my dog. But I haven't started another physical book yet, so that's why I left it up there. I love this book so much. I did think I was going to enjoy it, but it totally blew me away with how much I loved it. This is a horror book, but I read it this month because there is part of the story that involves a fictional land called Christmas Land, and Christmas plays a strong part in the story. But the story is a lot about family and parenting and has really realistic characters that are flawed and imperfect but are trying to be the best they can be. Not only did the story give me the creeps multiple times, especially when I was listening to it on audiobook because the narrator, Kate Mulgrew, is amazing, like one of my favorite narrators that I've ever listened to. Spoiler alert for another video that I have coming in 2020. But even without the audiobook, this book would have been a new favorite. It was such a good story. I love the ending. I'm not giving a review here, even though I kind of just did. Anyways, I just wanted to say that Joe Hill has definitely caught my eye and has the potential to be a new favorite author. Hopefully I read more of his books next year. Let me know what your favorite Joe Hill books are because he definitely also has a pretty big backlist. Alright guys, those are 9 authors that became new favorites for me this year or have the potential of becoming new favorites. Let me know in the comment section what are some authors that you discovered this year. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content. That is all I have for now. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bookworms, keep reading. Bye. But I didn't do a new favorite authors video in 2000, but I didn't do a new favorites author. I love the world building. Shh. You want on my lap? I just really love the characters